everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me once again is Senator Tammy Duckworth. Senator, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me on.
We have a lot to get to today, so I want to jump right to it, starting with last week. The Senate Armed Services Committee held a hearing on President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to cities across the country. This came just weeks after 2 members of the National Guard were shot in Washington, D.C. just the day before Thanksgiving. So to start off the conversation, why did you think there was this need for the hearing?
Well, I'm the person who made sure that hearing happened. I thought it was long overdue. Look, our heroes serve with honor, and they show up every single day to do the mission despite the risk. That's why it's so important that we make darn sure that the mission is the right one, that it is clear, effective, and that it serves our national security, not one single man's political agenda. And so I, about a month ago before Thanksgiving, said that I would not support passage of the defense budget unless the majority, in this case, Senator Thune and Senator Wicker, agreed to have this hearing. And I'm pleased that we finally got it done last week. And our hearing made it clear the cost of Trump's domestic deployments is too high a price on our service members, too high a price for our civil rights. It's too high a price for public trust in our military. And it's costing taxpayers at least $340 million so far.
Some Republicans have a different view. They find that, or have defended rather, the deployment of the National Guard. I want to read something that Senator Roger Wicker said. He said these strategic deployments are not only appropriate, but essential. Current crime rates in our largest cities have become a substantial burden on local and federal law enforcement agencies. Increasingly, these agencies are unable to keep our communities safe. They are underfunded and stretched thin, unable to reinstitute law and order on their own. What do you make of that argument?
Well, if you would take the $340 million that they are spending on these National Guard deployments and just hire police officers, they could have hired 9,000 police officers. And in this case, they were sending in Chicago, they sent Texas National Guard to Chicago. If they wanted to fight high crime, they should have gone to Dallas, Texas, that has a higher crime rate than Chicago does. So let's be clear what they're doing here. They're trying to normalize having uniformed troops on the streets of our cities. And in the hearing, they would not, the Trump administration would not rule out that they would use National Guard at the polling stations next year. So let's be clear what they're doing here. They're trying to intimidate the American people. They're trying to normalize having uniformed troops on the streets of our cities. And they plan on doing more than just the job that they're doing right now under Title 10 of the U.S. Code, which is to protect federal property. They want these troops to do law enforcement functions, which is in violation of the Posse Comitatus Act.
And when you hear that price tag, right, $340 million, that's a lot. I work at Forbes, and even from Forbes' standard, that's a lot of money. So when your Republican colleagues heard that, even in private conversations, I mean, what were those conversations like?
They just chose to ignore it. They covered their eyes, they covered their ears, they covered their mouths, and they're so afraid of Donald Trump that they're not willing to criticize him. But frankly, I love our military too much. I cherished every day that I woke up and called myself a soldier. And so we need to not abuse our uniformed military. They signed up to do a job, to protect and defend America, not to turn their weapons and to intimidate against fellow Americans and not to intimidate fellow Americans. And if we really want to fight crime, then you would have not diverted funds from law enforcement functions. The Trump administration has diverted over $800 million from law enforcement grants. It did everything to support programs for violence prevention, to support programs to protect children, to support programs to help police hire more police officers. $800 million they diverted from those programs, and then they go spend $340 million on putting National Guards on the streets to do things in D.C., such as mulch and pull weeds. That's what the National Guard are doing here.
I do now totally want to switch topics here and talk about those boat strikes, both in the Pacific and Caribbean. Since September, the United States military has struck 25 vessels and more than 90 people have died in these attacks. There's a lot of scrutiny on one of the attacks, the September 2nd one. It was a double tap strike. A boat was struck again after 2 survivors were seen clinging to the side of the boat. Senator Mark Warner, he told me he saw video of this double tap strike. He said it was disturbing, and disturbing was an understatement as to what he saw. There have been calls to release the full video of this double tap strike, and at first President Trump said that that was something he had no problem doing, but he would leave it up to Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. But today Hegseth said, of course we're not going to release a top secret, full unedited video of that to the general public. What are your thoughts here on what Hegseth said?
Well, he released the first part of it when he was boasting to the American people, when he was chest thumping and trying to be walk with a cowboy swagger. He released the first part of it. So he might as well release a second part, and he can certainly edit out classified information. Look, we had a briefing today from Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth in the secure briefing room. It's a top secret briefing to the Senate, and the briefing only reaffirmed what we already knew. The Trump administration is in violation of domestic and international law and our own Constitution. The briefing was classified, so I can't get into specifics, but I still have many questions and concerns. That includes, how can they possibly justify these strikes under international law? What evidence do they have that they're using that allows them to use military force against individuals on these boats? I can't, the fact that I can't talk about many of these issues is part of the problem too. This is how they hide the facts from the American people. And I'm really concerned that they're using classification to hide and to prevent the American people from having transparency, which we deserve from the people that represent us and who are supposed to be serving us.
To that point, if you think that the strikes are unjustifiable under international law, is there any evidence here that a war crime has been committed?
Well, listen, it's illegal under the fact that they killed two people with a second strike who were in the water clinging to half of a boat with no access to any communications equipment, according to the admiral who briefed this, and this is available in public reports. That already is in violation of norms of law of the sea. If somebody is in distress, you're supposed to go and render aid. As a pilot, I worry about what we're doing to put American pilots in jeopardy, because under the Geneva Convention and international law of the sea, if an airman is shot down and you're floating on a raft in the middle of the ocean, even if you have a radio, you are not allowed to go back and just kill them. But that's exactly what these guys did. I worry about, I want to get rid of drug traffickers, and I think we need to go after them. But I worry that we're putting American troops in harm's way, because how we violate the Geneva Convention is how other people will violate the same laws and rules when they deal with our servicemen and women.
And the Trump administration said that these strikes are part of this campaign against drug trafficking. And President Trump said that the United States is going to start targeting drug smuggling on land. What are your thoughts on that? And do you think that essentially, if that happened, that would be a declaration of war?
Well, only Congress can make a declaration of war, so let's be clear about that. Listen, if they really wanted to go after drug traffickers, they would take the money that they're spending on these strikes and put it into the Coast Guard, put it into law enforcement. I wonder how many Coast Guard interdictions have happened in this same time period, and I suspect it will be many times more than the 24 or 27 strikes that they've conducted with military force. So let's make clear that this president is not about fighting drug traffickers. We know he's lying, because if that were actually important to him, he would not have just pardoned a man who was convicted of helping traffic 400 tons of cocaine into our country.
And now, once again, changing topics swiftly, the last one for you today. Last week in the Senate, dueling health care bills both failed. And this comes as the enhanced ACA subsidies are set to expire at the end of the year. And if they do lapse, over 20 million people will see their insurance premiums skyrocket. As of right now, it doesn't seem like there's any plan in the Senate to address rising healthcare costs. I mean, what are your thoughts on the moment we're in right now?
Well, Democrats have a plan. We put it forward. And my Republican colleagues had a simple choice: vote yes with Democrats to help us stop these healthcare premiums from skyrocketing. But they chose to vote no and abandon their own constituents, who will be priced out of health insurance altogether. It's really disappointing that they chose to abandon the constituents. I was just speaking to a gentleman just a week ago in Illinois, in Carbondale, who said that his health insurance premiums are going to go from $3,000 a year, sorry, to over $10,000 a year, and that he was going to drop his health insurance because they're on a single income. His wife is sick. She needs the health insurance. She can't work, so he's going to go without health insurance in order to be able to afford the premiums for her health care. And he's just going to pray that he doesn't get sick, because if he does and he loses his job, now they have no income. This vote last week was Republicans' last chance to do right by families and help extend the ACA tax credits. The plan the Democrats have put forward, we could have stopped millions of families from the pain of paying thousands of dollars extra per month for health insurance, but they chose to do nothing. It should have been a no-brainer.
I think if I were a Republican in the Senate, or if there was a Republican senator sitting here right now, they would say to you, hey, Republicans did have a plan. Democrats just didn't vote for it. They would say things like the enhanced premium tax credits were too expensive and they jack up healthcare costs. The GOP plan was to let the enhanced ACA tax credits expire and instead replace them with direct payments of up to $1,500 into HSA accounts. What are your thoughts on that plan?
So they're going to take away Americans' ability to buy health insurance and give them $1,500. Do you know what $1,500 pays for? It doesn't even pay for the ambulance ride. It's an insult to the American people. That was no plan. What they were going to do was going to force Americans into high deductible plans, give them $1,500, and then, the first time you get sick, you're going to have to pay more than $1,500. So their plan was going to push millions of middle-class Americans into medical bankruptcy, which is where we were before the ACA took effect. They need to stop listening to Donald Trump. They need to stop listening to folks who really are trying to take away the health insurance and health care that millions of Americans depend on.
And my last question to you, because we are running out of time, simply yes or no. I mean, do you think that this will get solved by the time that these subsidies expire?
I don't think the Republicans would do it. No, I think they want it to expire. I think they've been trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act for 10 years now, and this is their goal, to take away health insurance from Americans. And we'll go back to the bad old days when you can not get health insurance if you have pre-existing conditions, when we can't negotiate for lower drug prices. All of those types of things Republicans want us to go back to because they're in the pockets of the big medical companies.
Senator, I always appreciate our conversations. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.